Well, welcome to our first game dev vlog, or what do we call it? First dev diary?
Why are we talking like we're in a closet?
We're not in the closet, come on.
Yeah, this is a dev diary, and we're just going to talk a little bit about where we've been and what we're doing now.
Yeah, so we're Odd House Games. We're a husband and wife duo from Toronto, Ontario.
I'm Don.
And I'm Lena. I'm the illustrator and animator.
And I do the visual programming and the writing.
We dabble in art and design too. We wear many, many hats.
Until they get too heavy.
We were on hiatus for a while, a couple of months actually, but we're excited to get back into it.
And just because we are coming back to this, and you might not have heard any of our content before, Zach and the Soggy Resume is a point-and-click adventure game. It's 2D, and if you are interested in following that, that's what we'll be sharing.
And in our first dev diary, I wanted to talk about why we went into our hiatus and what went wrong when we first started working on our game. Do you remember when we started working on our game?
It was March, April of 2019.
And now we're resuming in July 2020. So that might be helpful for other people working on their own game or their own passion project to hear our story.
Maybe.
So here's how not to develop a game. The first thing I have written down is our first game idea was not really us. We had this idea to make a survival horror style game that took place in a submarine. And we love horror games. We're really huge fans. But in terms of our personal style, I felt like it wasn't really aligning, and it was really difficult to step out of that, at least for our first game.
It was a bit painful and unnatural, and we were trying to push the process forward, but it was almost like it wasn't in sync with our personality, so the creative process was not super fun.
Yeah, it was like forcing what's the saying? Forcing a square peg into a round hole.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe we'll get back to that game. We still have that idea on the back burner, so who knows?
I think knowing what we know now, we could definitely get back to that, but more from like a comedy horror B-movie, where it has...
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it has like those darker elements, but it brings in that comedy that we like.
Mm-hmm. The second thing I have written down is we tried to do too many things at once. I think this was one of the big ones, why we stopped working on our game. And so we were trying to write, design characters, design backgrounds, and develop all at the same time.
While working full-time.
Yeah, while working full-time. And, this might work for some, but I found it a bit overwhelming.
And it was too easy to get obsessed with, like, the smallest aspects that shouldn't be obsessed over because there were bigger issues that had to be sorted out. So, for example, writing at the same time as designing the characters, the backgrounds, and the UI, you could fuss over the UI without even really having the game fully written yet, and it just became too much at once.
It felt like such a huge task, but if you focus on one thing at a time, I think it would be a lot more doable.
Yeah, so we did enjoy working on it in the beginning, but eventually we burned out because we were trying to just, force development to happen without having a proper development process in place.
I think we jumped too quickly into development when we should have focused more on the story first, figure out what we're trying to say, and
pre-production.
And go from there, yeah. That's the thing, though. It's like pre-production is not the fun part about game development. The fun part is, getting in there, watching the characters move around, and so might not be fun, but it's really important.
Yeah, because as we were putting it together, we were linking scenes up. We had a background in, we had an animated character, we had moving mouths, and it can get distracting to start seeing all that fun stuff and then have to go back to lining up all your ducks and trying to make sure all the writing is done before you can move forward with those things.
The next thing I want to talk about is when we put too much time and emphasis into social media. Like, it was fun, don't get me wrong, but it was kind of a distraction from working on the game.
The only way to get a project done is to actually work on it.
Yeah, and one thing is, don't get into game development for the money or for clout, as the kids say.
Yeah, it can take a long time to put a game together, and you better enjoy the process because it's kind of a gamble. You don't know if it's going to, generate revenue in the end.
One more thing was that we worked way too much. I think we touched on this a little bit, but Don and I were both working full-time jobs. Don, you just graduated from a college program, and you were looking for a job, and that's where this whole story kind of sprouted from. I don't know if it was intentional, but you kind of wrote the idea about this character looking for a job, and you were looking for a job as well.
I had just been back to school for a post-grad program to update my skills, and the sense of hopelessness with my classmates and despair was overwhelming. And they say that within 3 months you'll have a job, but just that period of doing all the work, networking, meeting people in the industry, and then kind of just putting out resumes was just quite an experience. So I didn't actually realize when we put this idea together for the game that it was even remotely based on what I was going through at all. But then it became quite obvious later.
Yeah, maybe after the fact, where we stopped and looked at it and we were like,
this is autobiographical.
Yeah, it is. We were working late nights, and it just kind of stopped being fun. I think our creative energy was totally drained, and we felt really burnt out.
Because we didn't have a proper production process, there was a lot of guilt associated with working on the project but not working on it, and then feeling this disappointment when we weren't doing it that kind of just became stressful.
Yeah, and I remember looking at you and being like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And you were like, well, I felt the exact same way, so I'm glad we were on the same page. But yeah, I'm happy to be back working on it now that the world has turned upside down. What else is there to do but make a game?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm only half joking, but...
And it says a lot about trying different things. If there's something that you want to do and you don't try it, you'll never know if it sticks. And if you do something and you take a break and you come back to it, then, there's something there.
Yeah, it's been great, yeah.
We've kept costs low, too. We're primarily using Unity with a plugin called Adventure Creator, which is used to help develop adventure games. And it's got a visual interface to minimize the amount of hard coding that you have to do. So with Unity, you don't have to pay unless your game is generating over $100,000 a year in revenue for the license. And then the plugin itself is just $70. So we've been trying to focus on using the tools that we have.
I'm using Illustrator for illustrating the characters and using After Effects for animating them.
And one interesting thing that happened is when we came back to the game, I was trying to use some tools, some open source tools, one of them called Twine, to organize and structure the branching dialogue. But it became somewhat buggy, and eventually I just went back to using a Word document. It just worked, and it's just all in a simple document. It has a summary, characters, items, locations, key story beats, the different acts of the game. And sometimes you just have to think, is this tool actually simplifying things, or is it just creating more work? And for me, I know that keeping the tools simple is the way to push the work forward, because as soon as I hit those stumbling blocks that are frustrating, it can really throw off my process.
I remember the look on your face when it crashed and you lost a bunch of work. It wasn't a whole lot, but it was really disappointing. But overall, I think we're doing a lot better this time. We're taking care of ourselves. We're eating well now. One thing this pandemic, it's been awful, but one good thing to come out of it is force us to make a routine for ourselves and take care of ourselves. And I hope all of you are doing that too.
We've definitely tried to prioritize saving money, being healthier, pursuing passions, and just overall making improvements in our life and having little challenges like that, so that the monotony of, having those limited social interactions doesn't detract us from the days that go by.
Since we've resumed development, we have the story pretty much written. We have a few things that we need to iron out kind of in the middle, but we have it pretty much done. We've sketched out all the backgrounds, so those are all planned out. We still have a couple of puzzles to figure out, but again, we just have to do a bit of ironing out, and we started this YouTube channel, so like and subscribe. I feel like I'm obligated to say that.
You have to say that.
Now that we're YouTubers.
As for game news, we've seen a bit of the PS5 showcase and the Xbox Series X showcase, and I think I just really wish that Microsoft would consider their naming conventions for their systems, because
my goodness.
I cannot keep it straight.
Yeah, that is unfortunate.
It's like absolutely confusing. And I think it's funny watching people argue so much on Twitter over which system's going to be better, because to be honest, they're both going to be awesome. Like they're both going to have tons of games, slightly different takes on the gaming ecosystem, but you know, now more than ever there's indie games everywhere, and I think it's just going to be a great time for everybody.
Yeah, I'm excited for Bugsnax. Xbox Game Pass is a huge game changer.
Yeah. Stray, the one with the cat and the robots and the missing humans, or the extinct humans, with all that ray tracing, looked absolutely phenomenal.
And we love cats. So
we do. Yeah.
Anything with a cat.
And as for what games we've been playing to keep us busy when we're not working on the game, I love Dreams. It's so much fun. On the PS4, it just got VR support added. You can create games, music videos, so it's fun getting in there and seeing how people have turned all their creations within a day almost into a VR creation. Anything you want to do, you can make in there and share within that ecosystem, at least for now.
I've been playing Erica, which is one of the free games for PlayStation Plus this month. It's a FMV game, which I love. Yeah, it's been fun and trying to find all the endings and stuff. We're going to aim to have this sort of vlog, dev diary, maybe once a month to update you on our progress.
Thanks for listening.
Tune in to our next vlog in August.
Is it a vlog? Because a vlog is video, but it's video, but there's no visual.
I'm going to throw up some visuals.
Okay, well then maybe it is.
We'll see our little talking heads maybe. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Stay safe, wear a mask.
Bye everyone.
Bye.